Hey everyone, this is Brian from Sinister Gaming, going to showcase my Spright deck for the December format, leading up until the next year. So this deck kind of has like a well-rounded advantage. It plays a sort of minimal amount of hand traps, kind of like the way I like it. And I'd see that there's less tiers players at the locals I go to. There's not too many, so kind of have to make it more standardized and well balanced. So that's kind of like what I've been aiming for, but still is faring pretty well against that matchup. So let's just get right into it. So for the main deck, we have 3 blue, the 3 jet, and then each of these one-ofs. The lineup is pretty standard, but some people have been dropping the pixies, but I keep it in just since there's not really that many events lately and you can't get caught off guard with random boss monsters. And this does, if anything, it just acts as another name, which is pretty nice to have another level 2 body to special or normal if you don't have any. For the nimble package, this is also pretty standard as well, just the 3/2 in case you draw one, or you can special one off the beaver. And then I only play 2 swap frog. I've been pretty comfortable with just the 2. I understand the concept of having the 3rd in the situation where you'll have like a toad, a elf, and a link 2 or rank 2. So you kind of have to make a decision on whether or not to banish a card preemptively instead of just summoning out the 3rd swap off the deck with the toad. However, I feel like just getting to that scenario, it almost feels like you're winning in a sense. I feel like if this deck can't get to that, then it's probably going to be either behind or an uphill battle. And I also don't want to draw multiple of these, so I've been liking it at 2, and it's just been working out for me. For the hand traps, I have 5 Bestials, the 2 Ash, and then the 3 Imperm. Only playing Ash at 2 just because less people are playing Agito. Either they're maxing out on it, or they're just dropping it completely. Rarely are people going back to the 1 in tier elements. And this, you kind of need it for the Flunder and the mirror match, so I'd keep that in for sure, but 3's probably a bit too much. You could argue to go to the 3 on the Druid's Worm, since if they do so happen to mill you out, having the Magnuma as a target for their dark, is not that optimal. And it gives them a +1 for bringing back your monster. So you could switch these up, but I kind of like the idea of just opening up the Magnuma in the first place and not relying on it just getting milled. And I'm not really a fan of playing the 6 with the Saronir. I feel like you have to play maybe 8 to 9 to make it effective, just to capitalize on the value of Bestials. So just to make it a little bit more standardized to where, people are going to be playing more Rogue and Spright. I'm really comfortable with just these 5, despite it being worse against tier element. And then Imperm is just universally good against every matchup. Against Flunder, a lot of the times what I do is, if my hand is not looking too crazy, like if I can't out statue without committing too many resources, you can either do one of 2 things. You could Imperm the M-Pen instead of a Little Bird in case they have Advent, because either way they're not gonna, unless they're gonna end on one of each bird, there's no way they're ending on M-Pen, so they're just gonna end on statue essentially, and that's not that great. But if they have map, then I would likely just wait until my turn and just hit the statue straight up, and you don't have to worry about anything else. So this card's just really good right now, and I would suggest maxing out on it. For some of the consistency cards, I have the 3 starter and the 3 prosperity, still maxing out on these. you could technically drop the pot to 2 and probably get away with it. But I do like the utility and power that this card has, especially in post side deck, just to auto win in certain matchups if you draw or reveal the correct cards. Some of the other staple-ish cards for the spells, rounding them up. We have the 1 Smashers, the 2 Droplet. Normally it's not too great in this deck, but with the introduction of the Nimble package, it's not too bad playing it. And then I play a decent amount of spells, so you could, opt to go Droplet or activate a spell like Change of Heart, Chain Droplet, discard, or send this and then send a monster. And usually the 2 negates is going to be enough to break a board. And no Tier Element players really playing Crime in the main deck, so this card gets a lot of value. The only time this is not that great is if you're playing against Flunder and they shifter you. So yeah, that's pretty much the only scenario where it's not good. Change of Heart is good for the Flunder matchup and just taking your opponent's Rukalos. If they so happen to send it to the grave, yeah, it'll trigger and that'll suck, but it won't come back. So that's the nice thing if they so happen to try to force you to bait it out, or bait out their own Rukalos. And then 2 Talents, you could swap the Change of Heart for the 3rd by just like the 2, not really too crazy on maxing out on this, because it can be, I wouldn't say dead in the Tier Element matchup, but it's definitely has a condition that Spright might not be able to bait out in order to fulfill that condition. So rarely, like, you might have to commit a starter or some type of card to get your opponent to actually like play into the talents, unless it's like a Bestial. So by then they might already get like 2 fusions off their 1 negate, or the value to get off Solic. So you're already getting impermed and they're getting a 2nd fusion. It's kind of a bit much. And I still play Call by the Grave. You could cut it as well for the 3rd talents, but I like having it in the case that I'm going first and I just need to have my gigantic Spright resolved pretty much. And then Shifter doesn't hurt this deck too much, but to get the most value, ideally you don't want to play into Shifter. So that's another reason to use it. And then the last card I play, which is technically the only brick I think, is the Double Cross. Some people don't play this, but this card has it gives you a lot of value just for using it. It has 3 different effects. Typically I see myself using the special summon effect back with Toad to get a maximum of 3 Toad negates. Usually that's enough to end a Tier Element combo just with your standard board, and that's not counting if you have the hand traps and stuff to back it up. So having this interaction, I think, just increases your ceiling as a Spright player, which normally is like a mid to low ceiling deck in a way. So this kind of just makes it a little bit more skillful and harder to predict your plays. So then for the extra deck, I just have the 2 Gigantic, the Toad, the Shadow Mosquito. With this card, it replaces Sky Cavalry, and you can OTK under, I forget the math, I believe it's 20, somewhere between 24 and 27 or greater, with 5 monsters pretty much, assuming you're uninterrupted. So it's a little bit wishful thinking, but this could like steal games in time, activating like maybe 1 or 2 effects and just negating non-targeting is pretty good. And then some other utility cards, plus the Zeus package. The Onibimaru is pretty standardized. The Mannequin Cat, minor spoiler for my side deck I don't play too many targets for this, but it's just another one of those high ceiling cards that you can play against the miniature elements to get Bystials. So you can reborn just any tier element, like a name that's not going to do anything on summon, like a Shiren or a Havness, and then you can just go and get a Magnamut from the deck and then link that away and continue on with play, so you'll have extension plus follow-up. And then yeah, just the Zeus package with Gigantic, you know, it's pretty broken against tier, so you'll want to keep that in. And then for the links, the 2 Elf and the Sprint for the Spright links. Pretty standard stuff. Never really saw myself going to the 3rd Elf, and the 3rd Elf isn't really as needed, I feel like, ever since the introduction of the Ishizu cards. Hardly ever am I going to bring those out multiple in a game against tiers. And then for the last links, I have the Nightmare Phoenix. It's really good if your opponent is really holding off on activating their Solic trap card that negates. And then it's just good at outing certain floodgates like Necro Valley and stuff like that. Dark Charmer is still good for the same reason, like as Mannequin Cat. You can bring back the Bystials, and you can bring back your opponent's Merly. And these last two, the IP and the Avermax, no one really respects the Avermax now. I would say that pre-YCS Pasadena or during YCS Pasadena, people were really respecting it, but yeah, I think it's kind of like a good time to play it again because no one's really playing Borreload or Goddess or anything like that. And then for the side deck, we have the Artifact package, and you can see that I'm also playing the Lancia just so I can get value. Since this is such a heavy side deck spot or dedication, I went pretty much full commit and added the Lancia for Flunder. So you can just Sanctum this out and then draw phase, hit them with this, and then they're not going to get any follow-up off the birds. They're not going to be able to get any pots, and they can't map. So you're pretty much in a winning position from there. And then also it shuts down their Shifter if they so happen to do it on your turn, because this will override the Shifter. And the Scythe is good. Both of these are good with Mannequin Cat if your opponent's playing lights, and this can work against the Ishizus since they're fairies. So worst case scenario, if you have a lot of advantage, you could always end on the Mannequin Cat and bring this out if they so happen to summon a Keldo or a Medora or any of the other Ishizus. So that's pretty much that. And then for the tier matchup, we have 3 Shifter. I typically side out the swap package, 2 swaps, and a Nimble Angler, and that'll fit these in pretty nicely, and just you don't have to worry about trying to get the Toad out. Just work with what you got, and so far it's been working. Shout outs to Paolo for that. And then Red Resonator. Yeah, unfortunately time exists, and this is like one of the most consistent win conditions in time, I feel like. So I feel like you have to have access to it just to secure a match, and games particularly are taking a long time right now, so sadly we need it. And then 3 Lightning Storm. I'm choosing this over Evenly right now, but so far in testing it is a little bit wishful thinking, like drawing Shifter and Lightning Storm against tier elements, but this has utility in the sense that you don't have to commit the battle phase, and then Destruction is generally pretty good right now, especially in like rogue matchups and Fluunderies. So if they end on like lackluster spells and traps, you can always just hit the monsters, unless they're playing double statue, which I'd say like 60% are not and 40% might be. Then you know it's not the greatest, but evenly matched would just get negated anyway by Apex Avian, so I'd rather just hit the problem cards right away. So I think that's the main concern. And then I'd say this deck struggles the most against Fluunderies. So to contend against that, I'm playing the Banshee and the Zombie World package. This I'm still testing out, admittedly, but the Banshee can still work pretty well if the opponent so happens to shifter you, or if they cherry you. You can Mannequin Cat back the shifter, similar to how Joshua Schmidt did with Chaos Hunter. Just bring this out, and then when they try to start playing, you can just banish this from the field. Or if they, never shifted you, you could always just normal summon it, link it away, and play like that. And then this is still a good card going second, just because even if they have map or the trap, you can still pretty much normal summon to swing over the statue with no consequences, since they won't be able to tribute summon anything. So the only thing that's gonna hurt you in that regard would be a second statue. So yeah, second statue is kind of like the killer of this deck. Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. I would like more suggestions on some Mannequin Cat targets potentially. I've seen End of Anubis going around, and that seems pretty good. Not really too crazy on the Newman stuff, but yeah, let me know what you guys have been testing in the Spright side deck in particular, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.